What does the Mazateca curandera have in common with? Maria Sabina was a Mazateca shaman healer who used wild mushrooms during her ritual ceremonies to achieve a higher state of consciousness. Bob Marley was a Rastafarian Jamaican reggae musician who habitually smoked cannabis. So what do these two people with completely different backgrounds have in common? Both of these iconic figures have been popularized through mainstream media as famous symbols of the drug culture. They have been idolized for using substances they themselves do not consider drugs. Rather, they consume the substances because it was a way of life for themselves and their people.
A youth counterculture based on an increase in recreational drug use arose from a peak interest revolving around indigenous ways of life. Gordon Wasson was a journalist who visited Maria Sabina in Oaxaca, Mexico, and witnessed many rituals led by her. In 1957, Wasson published in Life magazine an article entitled Seeking the Magic Mushroom, which exposed Maria Sabina and her shamanistic mushroom rituals.
The ritual ceremony, or las veladas, was strictly performed at night and was led by a shaman. Rituals were performed in times of great need, such as when someone fell ill or when the community needed guidance. After taking a dose of mushrooms, they traveled to a parallel universe and received guidance from a higher power. In the Mazateca culture, it was completely normal to consume mushrooms during rituals since they had been used for centuries before. Wasson's article sparked curiosity among the counterculture and caused for an influx of foreigners into Oaxaca to experience Sabina's mushrooms.
Invasion of foreigners created a negative image of Sabina within Mexican culture. She became a Malinche figure, a traitor who revealed the sacred practices of her community, selling out to the white people. An excess of foreigners caused conflict between Sabina and her community. Sabina's house was actually burnt down and her son was murdered. Maria Sabina's overtly popularized association with wild mushrooms has created a misconception of her indigenous culture, which overlooks the sacred practice of the mushrooms themselves. The recreational consumption of mushrooms within the counterculture was not relevant to Sabina. Instead, the mushrooms were her life. Maria Sabina eventually became an accidental Bob Marley, in that an entire generation falsely reconstructed her as a drug icon. These misconceptions surrounding Sabina persist today, as our current generation continues to view her as a pot-smoking mushroom fiend.
Maria Sabina, in actuality, is and was a human being. She lived a simple, modest life, but had a unique calling. The veladas she performed embodied her people's practice of sacred mushroom ceremonies that can be traced to her ancestors. The notion of sacredness is a concept that not many in today's society would be able to understand. Thus, shamans like Sabina, who use sacred mushrooms, should not be misrepresented as drug icons. Her life is a direct representation of her culture and the Mazateca way of life.